Arya Stark has had one of the most insane journeys in television history. She started out as a wee little northern girl and turned into one of the deadliest assassins in Westeros. Now, a lot of people think that the last Stark death we'll ever see on screen was Benjen, and that was in Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 6. I, however, don't really know if the Starks are going to be let off that easily. Well, let me correct myself there. They have in no means gotten off easy, but in this final season, I don't really know if Dan and Dave are going to allow the chances to let one more Stark death slip through their fingers. In this video, I want to discuss several potentially leaked scenes that relate to Arya in Game of Thrones Season 8. Let's discuss the most prolific, well-rounded fights in all of the Seven Kingdoms, as well as her direwolf companions. As always, this video will contain spoilers. Before we get started, please slap a like on this video as the like goal is going to be 426. Also, make sure you're subscribed and help us reach that goal of 50,000 strong before the long night is over. And lastly, make sure you have your notifications turned on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long night. Now, HBO has recently done a round of promos, these short little clips from Arya and from Jon and from a few other characters where they have the actors talking about their character's journey. And in those clips, Maisie Williams mentions how some of Arya's kills have been insanely brutal. She specifically mentions the one with Meryn Trant. She stabs out his eyes after having lured him into this location, but she stabs out his eyes and then stabs him in the chest, slits his throat. Then we get to Walder Frey, which is personally my favorite death that Arya has added, or taken off her list rather, and this was, chopping up his kids into little pieces and then feeding it to him just before slitting his throat and then using his face to slaughter every single man in House Frey. Now, this is TV. This is make-believe land, so you can root for serial psychopathic killers like that, and it's perfectly okay. If this were in the real world, I probably would be the most afraid of Arya, and if we take or remove the Stark veil over our eyes, she's a psychopath. And if I saw her walking towards me in a lonely, dark alleyway, I probably would run fast as shit in the opposite direction. But don't get me wrong, and please don't twist my words. House Stark has had an insane amount of terrible shit happen to them, so the fact that Arya is growing up and seeking vengeance, I don't know if I'd honestly do anything different if I were in her shoes. Okay, I don't think I would have had the stomach nor the balls to cut up some dude's son and bake him into a pie, but as far as slitting his throat and killing every man in this house, I'm down. But all that aside, a character like Arya Stark, who's had such an insane journey, was starting off in this little girl and growing up to being one of the greatest assassins in the Seven Kingdoms, they have to go out with a bang. There's no way they're going to be tucked away safe in Winterfell or taken out on the battlefield by a group of whites who overwhelm her when she's least expecting it. In my opinion, she's either going to make it all the way into the very end but be completely changed and, just like Jon Snow, be done with the games of Westeros and want to sail west. Maybe leading a small group of people into a new kingdom, very similar to Queen Nymeria. This Instagram post from Maisie Williams would have you believe that she's one of the last characters standing. But I do, however, think there's a slight chance that maybe Arya will slip down a dark path where her type of character, and maybe she's been traumatized so much by the world of the War of the Five Kingdoms, that she won't be able to exist in this new world that Jon and Daenerys are going to create in Game of Thrones Season 8. And that's the idea that I'm going to entertain in this video while discussing these leaks. And that is always said in air quotations, because these are most likely a load of horseshit and are to be taken with a grain of salt. Now, these leaks were sent to me on the DMs over on Twitter, where you can go follow me at Sir_Hunts, but they start out by saying, Arya starts out the season as Sansa's new hand/protector. In episode 1, before Jon and Daenerys arrive, Sansa and Arya are discussing what they should do about their food rations. Arya suggests they should keep most of the grain in the crypts. This would prevent theft, as most outsiders don't know their way down there. The scene ends with Sansa sending Arya on a mission to collect the remaining grain from a nearby village. Arya heads out immediately, and on her journey, reconnects with Nymeria, making her promise to stay close to home and that Arya would never forsake her again. Okay, so you had me up until the part where you just casually mentioned that Arya runs into Nymeria and she somehow reconnects with her. I feel like that was just shoehorned in there. But continuing on here, upon Arya's return, she discovers that Winterfell is under attack by an unknown army. Before she figures out what's going on, she notices Sansa, or someone who she thinks is Sansa, being thrown into a wagon. The wagon has a Lannister emblem on it and takes off into the night. The army attacking Winterfell was the Golden Company. Jon and Daenerys arrive midway through the battle and shut the shit down. Daenerys and Jon talk to the sellsword leader in private after defeating his army in battle. It is then revealed that Cersei sent them up north and they are the Golden Company. Just as they're about to end the conversation and put the man to death, Sansa walks in. It's not really made clear yet how she got away from the battle or how she survived and what happened with Arya seeing that person thrown into the wagon, but we pick back up with episode 2 and we then find out what happened to Arya. Apparently she slipped into the small group of men taking Sansa prisoner. She hasn't figured out yet that the men took Alice Karstark thinking she was Sansa. Arya and the group make it all the way back to King's Landing before she realizes the mistake. Okay, because Arya's an idiot. Instead of heading back north, she decides to take the face of Cersei's handmaiden. However, what she is not aware of is the fact that Qyburn's little birds watch Arya changing faces and informs him of this information. Arya is then immediately captured. Meanwhile, over in Winterfell, Jon, Sansa, and Daenerys are told of Arya's fate. Not exactly what happened to her, but they are told that she took off running after a small group of Golden Company men slipped off into the woods, not long after the battle begins. Right as they are discussing this, a raven is received from King's Landing, and in it, Cersei has proposed that she wants a trade-off of Daenerys for Arya, an agreement that once the fight for the Long Night is over, that Jon and the Starks will never set foot in the South again, and that Daenerys and all of her armies will be disbanded. Okay, I'm just gonna pause right there. Now, obviously, this is a load of shit, but it is entertaining. It does bring up a few possibilities. Arya getting captured is not one of those possibilities, but the fact that Cersei may send a letter to Winterfell, maybe not before the Long Night, but maybe afterwards, if she has somehow captured one of the Starks. If she is to send a letter to Winterfell, then I can see the contents being something very similar to that. Basically, don't come down south. And if you do, I'll kill whoever I have being held hostage. Another thing that really bugs me that there's no way that Arya would just become a complete idiot is that it somehow takes her all the way to King's Landing to figure out that that's not actually Sansa being held captive. I'm pretty sure if she's got on the face of one of these Golden Company men or one of these Lannister soldiers, it'd be pretty easy to go peek her head in the wagon and see who that actually is. Maybe give Sansa a little bit of comforting advice, letting her know everything's going to be okay. I can't see it taking the full length of that journey. One thing I can see happening, however, is if a situation like this does arise where Arya is finding herself having to infiltrate King's Landing and kill Cersei, well, I fucking hope it does, because that's how our journey's been leading up. If there is one person that's going to give Cersei her just desserts, it's going to be Arya Stark. Now, I have always been a fan of Cersei living until the very end, maybe being forced to spend out the rest of her days in a prison cell, because that would be the best punishment for her character. Death is sort of an easy out. You guys saw how easy it was for her to drink some poison and just slip away. The fact that she's just okay with death wouldn't be enough with her. And also, you have to take into consideration that she doesn't like to just kill her enemies. She likes to torture them and poison them first. So the fact that Arya can get her hands on Cersei and do those same things to her, that's something that we're all excited about. And if it does go down a similar way that's mentioned in this leaks, I could see her using a face of either Cersei's handmaiden or someone who just has access to the Red Keep and access to Cersei's wine, poisoning her, and then maybe doing something like tying her up and giving her the antidote so she comes back to life just as she's about to die, and doing this over and over again. I don't know, something like that. Maybe Arya could wear the face of Tyrion or Jaime and sneak into the cell and maybe give Cersei a false sense of hope that she's gonna, have one of her brothers come in and give her an escape route. Something like that. Any one of those ways would be better than just giving her the option of escaping the Seven Kingdoms through death. But continuing on with the last part of these leaks here, after the information from Cersei is received, a 6-minute long discussion ensues. The end result is that Jon will go in place of Daenerys. They will agree to meet with Cersei. Daenerys offers to send the Dothraki south, but Jon tells her that they are needed in the north in order to keep her safe and to help fight against the Night King and his army. Daenerys tells Jon that she will not lose him. Jon assures her that he always comes back. After Jon departs to King's Landing with a small group of soldiers and the captain of the Golden Company hostage, Daenerys can be seen whispering something to Rhaegal, and then Rhaegal then flies off after Jon. Okay, so I don't really need to dissect that last part, but I am a super fan of the fact that if Jon Jon does go south, which, you know, I always talk about these pictures in my videos, but we do have these images from early on at the beginning of this last year, to really like the beginning of the filming season. We have these images of Jon Snow meeting with Cersei. Now, there is someone who potentially could be the Golden Company leader right here. Jon Snow is definitely walking with someone, but a few people have said to see in the background here that that's actually Daenerys. So maybe Daenerys is with Jon when he goes and meets with Cersei. But all that aside, I do not see the leak going down this way. If these leaks are legit and Jon Snow does in fact meet with Cersei one last time in Game of Thrones Season 8, I don't really know if it's going to be to sort of trade off hostages, like him in place for maybe one of his sisters or even Daenerys. I think it's going to be more so that the Night King has destroyed all of Winterfell. They have nowhere else to go but to King's Landing. He will try to convince Cersei that the last place they can actually put up a strong fight before they're all turned into undead walking zombie whites is at King's Landing. So maybe we get in this final season, instead of what we're all expecting, which is Jon and Daenerys to destroy Cersei and every single enemy they conquer, maybe we get in this final season all of them coming together for one final stand against the Night King. Maybe that's what the whole purpose of this entire series is. Put your differences aside, work together, or you're all gonna fucking die. But back to Arya for a minute before we wrap this video up. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, Arya is one of the most prolific fighters in all of the Seven Kingdoms. She's been trained from day one to be an assassin. Not only has she been trained from day one, just because you, side note here, just because you don't see her practicing every fucking episode on screen, doesn't mean that she hasn't been continuing her training. She's been trained by a water dancer, by the Faceless Men, and by Westerosi fighting style. So in short, homegirl can handle herself. But all that aside, I do not see her journey ending tucked away in a castle trying to protect Sansa and keep her safe. And nor do I see it being killed on a battlefield. There's no way that her character would go out like that. I mean, I kind of guess there is a way, and that's sort of the point of this whole show, is that no one really lives up to their destiny. But I just can't see Arya ending without it being extremely traumatic or extremely sweet, in the sense that her life is, or she's not able to continue living her life without the sacrifice from another. One way I'd like to personally see her journey end in Game of Thrones Season 8 is not necessarily in her death, but with her and Sandor going to fight Cersei in the mountain. We do know that Sandor told his brother last season that you know what's coming for you, bro. But the journey that Sandor's on right now, there's no way he would willingly go south unless the Night King had already been defeated. I guess it is possible that he will go down south without the Night King having been defeated if maybe Arya's captured, or maybe he finds out that Arya went down south and he doesn't want her to be going down there alone. I mean, we did have that line from Arya where she told Sandor one day she's gonna put a sword through the back of his eye and out the back of his skull or some shit like that. So that could have been possible foreshadowing to if Arya and Sandor face the mountain and Cersei, maybe Sandor's gravely wounded, and this time instead of Arya leaving him for dead, she actually puts him to rest, and maybe in her killing him, she's finally able to put the past behind her and become a new person, turn over a new leaf, so to speak, and maybe not end as a killer assassin who will not fit in this newly formed world at the end of Game of Thrones Season 8. Okay, so I think we've pretty much covered every possible way for her journey to end. If I missed something, please let me know down below in the comment section. Alright, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could please slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 426. Also, make sure you're subscribed. We have a goal of reaching 50,000 strong before the long wait for Season 8 is over. Also, make sure you have your notifications turned on so that way you get alerted every single time I drop a Game of Thrones video throughout this long nights. Super special shout out to every single member of my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. Super shout out to Terry, Lynn, Nancy, Mario, and James. And also, thank you to every single person watching right now. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunt's Reviews.